Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome, Knight fans, once again to the Black and Gold Banneret podcast, and I am back, baby. This is Jeff Sharon along with Eric Lopez after, we got a new member of the Knight family joining us, Eric, quite not unexpectedly, but a little bit earlier than we anticipated, but she's nonetheless healthy. My baby daughter, Eliza Marie Francis, was born a week ago yesterday. We're recording this on Wednesday, October 25th. Or excuse me, she was born a week ago today. Sorry, we went into the hospital on Tuesday. She was born a week ago today, 6 pounds, 4 ounces, and that's why I was out last week. But I want to thank you and Brian for basically taking the wheel while I was away. You guys didn't mess the place up too bad, did you?
No, and don't forget your old buddy, Victor Anderson, your old classmate. He helped produce it.
Thank you to Victor as well for pulling that off. That was clutch, I will say.
Yeah, it takes multiple people to take care of all the responsibilities you do on the podcast. Hey, look, I guess you guys decided to beat out Scott Frost there as far as getting the kid out there, because he's at the time of this recording, he could be he's waiting for the child to come out with his wife, and that could be any moment.
It's funny because we went down to, the baby was born down at Winnie Palmer, and as is basically every child in Central Florida these days. But there was a fleeting minute there when I was like, I know Frost is on baby watch. What if he shows up, in the room next to us or something? Wouldn't that be something? Obviously, that didn't happen, but because I know that he and his wife are expecting their first kid. Is that right? So
I believe so. This would be the perfect week to do it because, it's Austin Peay week. So, like I said, this would be a great week to do it.
Maybe they should induce labor. Who knows?
Hey, whatever they want to do. So,
listen. Here's the story with that. We're going to get to football actually last on today's show. There's a lot in the Olympic sports going on that we need to talk about and get the word out to you, the fans. So just a reminder, we are at blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can hit us up on Facebook as well. Just search for facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. Look us up on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. I am at Jeff_Sharon. Eric is at Eric Lopez Elo. Brian is at Spokes_Murphy. Follow us all there. And also make sure you subscribe to this podcast if you haven't yet on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. All right. Let's dive in right away with not football, which is what we've usually been doing to this point, but I want to talk about women's soccer, Eric Lopez, because UCF comes off of last weekend, they played the two Northeastern teams, UConn and Temple. They get a 2-0 win over UConn, a 4-1 win over Temple, and they have their regular season finale, I should say, this Friday, October 27th at 7 p.m. at home. They are playing USF. It is the War on I-4, and this is a big one here. It's going to be televised on UCFKnights.tv, but really you should make it out to the track and soccer complex for this game, because here's the story with this team right now. They are 12-1-1, 7-0-1 in the conference. And, as we're looking at where the Knights really stand, where they truly stand, taking a look at the standings in the American, this is obviously the key game for them because USF right now is 7-1 with 21 points in second place. UCF is 7-0-1 with 22 points. So this is for the regular season title. UCF right now, women's soccer, they are climbing the polls as well. They are number 7 in the United Soccer Coaches rankings. They have, like I said, only one loss. That was in their season opener to South Carolina, who's currently ranked number 3. The Knights also have one draw. That was to Cincinnati earlier this year, up in Cincinnati. In the RPI, the Knights are also in the top 10. In fact, they're 6th behind South Carolina, which is the team that beat them, like we said. Stanford, North Carolina, Duke, and West Virginia. Of course, they beat North Carolina earlier this season at home. So, and then, of course, now this next game, if the Knights win and defeat South Florida, that would also help their RPI because South Florida is an RPI top 30 team. They're 27th. So what is really at stake here for UCF, other than, of course, remember, the regular season champion hosts the conference tournament. So at 12-1-1, they have won 8 in a row. This streak just continues. We really are seeing something historic from this team right now. And, maybe we could have scoffed at this earlier, but I think now they have a legit shot to get to the College Cup Final Four in Orlando, don't you?
I did. I wrote about it last week on the site, on the Black and Gold Banneret. I talked about the women's soccer team being the standard on campus. I made the case that they're the best team on campus, and that includes the football team. And, one of the reasons, yeah, you're right. You highlighted it. Depending on what you read, they are in the position. We had, in fact, if you follow Chris Henderson, who we've had on this program, and we might have him on again probably next week, actually. We're going to try and get him on. He does a lot of the soccer projections. He's like the Joe Lunardi of women's soccer. He's been flirting with UCF as a 1 seed / 2 seed overall. And what that means is if UCF ends up as a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, they get to host every round of the NCAA tournament leading up until the College Cup, which, as you mentioned, is in Orlando. Whereas if they're a 2 seed, they would have to go on the road for the Elite 8. And it's a fine line. And one of the things for them to do to have a shot to be the 1 seed, in my opinion, is I think they got to win the regular season title, which they can do with a win or a draw on Friday night against USF. And then if they do that, they get to host a conference tournament, and then they'll play the semifinal and hopefully the championship game. And I think if they win the 2 tournament games there, I think they've done everything you could ask to be a possible 1 seed. Whether they get it or not, who knows? But that's, I think, what's at stake here is obviously the regular season title, a chance to host the tournament. And I think for UCF, a chance to put an exclamation point at senior night. They got a tremendous big group of these seniors. And as I mentioned in the article last week, and it's still up there, this is big. This has been big for Coach Sahadak because this is her team. We talked about this. When she won the conference tournament and the conference championship, at the beginning of her UCF run here when she arrived here, a lot of those players were with Coach Cromwell. So that was kind of what people outside the program would say. And there was questions whether she can continue the tradition that Cromwell has done here. And she has. And I think this year is a big exclamation point. This team has been dominant. They have the explosive offense. They've been blowing teams out by at least average scores of 3 to 4 to nothing, which, as I mentioned in the story last week, is a football, equivalent to like 70 to nothing.
Yeah, they've outscored their opponents. Forgive me for interrupting, but they have outscored in conference play. They have outscored their opponents 33 to 2.
And that is incredible. And yet, so that's been dominant. Yet this is going to be, they're facing a very good USF team. That's obviously right there in the mix. They're trying to they can win the regular season title and improve their chances of making the NCAA tournament, improve their RPI. Obviously, the war on I-4, points on the line for the trophy. So this is going to be a significant match. It could be a prelude to what happens on the football side a month later, but I'm looking forward to this match. And then think about this, Jeffrey, as USF brings in the leading goal scorer, or at least one of the leading scorers in the conference, in Evelyn Vanes, who could be maybe the big threat to Morgan Ferreira and Kayla Adamick as far as player of the year. I mean, Vanes has scored 5 goals in conference play. whereas Ferrer with 10 should win it. But I'm just saying if somebody that's not UCF related has a shot to win it, it would be Evelyn Vaines. She's dynamic. You're looking at two teams, by the way. You ready for this? In conference games only, UCF and USF are 1 and 3 in the conference in shots per game. USF has averaged 16 shots a game. UCF has averaged 20 shots a game. Hello.
Look out.
What I meant when I read that is wide open offense. Both teams like to attack and be aggressive. I think this will be an up-tempo match, and both teams have played well defensively. I think these are the two best teams in the league. They're 1 and 2 in the league in goals scored. UCF has scored a remarkable, you mentioned it, 29 goals in 8 conference games. USF is second. They've scored 18, to give you a perspective of how dominant UCF has been from an offensive standpoint. So I'm looking forward to this match. I think if you're UCF, you don't, obviously a draw gets you the title, but I think they want to win this clean because they know, they're trying to shoot for that 1 seed and try to stay home in Orlando throughout as long as possible in the postseason. So it's a big match. I expect a big crowd. It's senior night. You know how that's going to be. That's going to be an emotional night. And maybe the biggest match between these two schools on the women's soccer side that I can think of, where you consider the fact these rivals, the trophy will be on the line and then some on Friday night.
Well, UCF comes into this match leading the American in goals at 2.93 per game. USF third in scoring at 2.21 per game. But UCF is number 1 in goals allowed. They've given up just 7 goals in 14 games total. Where USF is also third, but they've given up 19. So the key, I think, for UCF has been the defense. You're right. This is this may be the last opportunity to really thank this group for what they've done for UCF. And like I said, what a group we've seen. As you take a look at the goal stats, you have Morgan Ferrara right now with 12 goals on the year, leading the American. Kayla Adamek is second. Tied for second with 10, with 2 other players. Obviously, you mentioned Evelyn Vaines, and then Elizabeth Werner of Memphis also tied with her at 10. Dina Orshman has been a revelation. She's got 5 goals on the season, which is tied for 10th in the conference as well. So it's those big 3 that have just been going nuts. And then when it comes to in between the pipes, you got to hand it to Vera Varis, who leads the American in goals against average. She has given up 2 goals in 960 minutes of play. That's a goals against average of 0.19. 0.19. That's amazing.
One of the nation's tops too. That's the thing about this team that's special, Jeff. They've got offense, they've got defense, they've got it all. That's why this team has got a shot to do some special things here. But again, one game at a time. It starts this Friday, trying to win that regular season championship against your rivals, and they're hoping that on senior night they get a chance to, just like other great UCF women's soccer teams, chance to celebrate on the field. And that's going to be what's at stake. I'm looking forward to it. I hope to. I plan to be out there. By the way, for those that are planning to go out there, parking information. There are, and this is one of the most incredible nights. As we'll get into, I could argue this is one of the top nights in the history of Olympic sports in the fall at UCF, when considering what volleyball's got in store. But apparently there's a concert at the CFE Arena that Friday night as well. So if you're looking for free parking for the women's soccer match, it'll only be available at the baseball lot and in lot E6. Garage F and Garage D will be paid parking. Garage F, D will be paid parking. So if you want free parking, you might just go to the baseball lot and to lot E6. And as you know, be a good idea to get there early because that could run out real quickly.
Yeah.
So that's I can't believe there's a concert to go along with volleyball and soccer on the same time frame. So it'll be
something called Mercy Me is playing there. I don't know who that is, but
UCF's hoping to input some Mercy Me on USF there. That USF will be saying that at the end of the night, but should be a big one. Very talented team, and again, lots on the line. You're right. You've pointed out. I think if UCF can win this, they get a chance to host and put themselves in a great spot. Now, obviously, if USF wins, USF would win the regular season title. So the tournament's going to be in the state of Florida. As I talked to our good friend, our mutual friend, Jeff Carl Harper, who's part of the production team for the American Digital Network, they're trying to figure out where they're going. At least now they know, we're taking a flight to Central Florida on Halloween. From where we're going, from that point on, we don't know which part of the I-4 corridor we're taking, but
we're flying into OIA, and then we're either going up 417 or down I-4, one or the other.
Exactly. So we'll find out after Friday night, but it should be a great atmosphere and a lot on the line for both sides, and it should be who knows, could be a sign of things to come. It might not. It could be one of two UCF USF sporting events on campus that could decide the conference championship.
Right. So quick recap of the American Athletic Conference women's soccer tournament schedule. Like you mentioned, it will be hosted by the team that is the 1 seed. We're going to find out who that is Friday night. The top 6 teams get in, so the top 2 get the bye. So 6 versus 3, Wednesday, November 1st is going to be that first round. It's going to be televised on the American Digital Network. It'll be the 3-6 at 4:30, and then the 4-5 at 7. Winner of the 3-6 plays the 2 seed at 4:30 on Friday, November the 3rd. So you get 48 hours between matches. Then a 1 seed plays at 7 on Friday, November the 3rd. And then the championship is scheduled for Sunday, November the 5th. And that will be televised on ESPN News at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So like you said, UCF women's soccer, Tiffany Roberts, Sahadak, and the crew hoping that it's all UCF that entire way. They would love nothing more than to be the 1 seed, playing prime time, 7 p.m. on Friday night, followed by the championship at home, 2 p.m. on Sunday. But they got to take care of business first and beat USF in the regular season finale. So make sure you keep an eye on that and head on down to the track and soccer complex to check it out, because if you haven't gone down there yet, you owe it to yourself to see this team play, because they are they're having a truly historic season. Speaking of potential history, I want to dive over to men's soccer real quick, because we have to talk about this. At one point, UCF was 1-5-1. All right, when they started out this season, first year under Scott Calabrese, they had the FIU match was canceled, the Charlotte match was canceled. Both of those due to weather. One of them due to a hurricane. But something has clicked following the loss, the 2-1 loss at SMU on Friday, September 29th. This team has gone on a tear. They are unbeaten in their last 5. They've beaten 3 of those 4 of the 4 matches that they've won by 3 goals or more, including at Tulsa, including home at Tulsa. They had a big win this past Saturday at number 22 UConn. They beat the Huskies in Stores 3-2. UConn's ranked number 22 in the country. Come home on Tuesday, they beat Florida Atlantic 3-0. And now here's the story for UCF men's soccer. Top 4 teams get into the American Athletic Conference tournament. We saw UCF snuck in last year with a late rally before they fell in the first round in a heartbreaker. Now, here's the drill with that. For UCF right now, they're currently 5th in the standings. They're 2-2-1 on the year. They have 7 points. At the top is SMU and UConn. They both clinch spots in the American tournament at 12 points each. USF is 3rd at 10. Temple is 4th at 9. UCF is on the outside, is currently on the outside, but they're knocking on the door. They have 2 conference matches left. Home finale is this Saturday, October the 28th, 2 p.m. against Temple. That will be on the American Digital Network as well. So you can watch that game there before you head on over to football. Or if you're at football, you can watch it if you're tailgating out there. Then they're playing Cincinnati on Saturday, November the 4th at 7. So 2 Saturdays in a row. Like we mentioned, Temple right now is at 9 points, just ahead of the Knights. This is a huge, huge match on Saturday afternoon, because if the Knights can beat Temple, they will leapfrog Temple in the standings, because you get 3 points for a win, and then they would be in the driver's seat to get that 4th seed. Because after that, they've got Cincinnati on the road, and granted it's on the road, but Cincinnati's 0-5 in the conference. They haven't won a game all season. So at least a conference game. They're 7-7-1 overall, but 0-5 in the league. So how about Scott Calabrese's team in his first year? They figured something out, and they figured it out fierce. And now these two matches, if they can wrap it up by winning these two matches and finish the season with 13 points, they'll be in great. They obviously, I would make the conference tournament at that point, and then it's anybody's guess what can happen, especially when consider how crazy the schedule has been for this team. But wow, what a comeback they've made!
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, you mentioned the match will be on American Digital Network. I'm going to get to call that match on Saturday, 2 Eastern, with Matt Stubbington. So I've obviously done a lot of work for this match. And, I'm talking to people at UCF and in the program. You mentioned the scheduling stuff. They're just coming around. They're figuring things out. They're learning how to play the system. They're learning to play with each other. They've kind of figured it out. What's unfortunate, I think, they didn't have the interruptions that you alluded to early in the year with the weather, cancellation of games like that, that kind of delayed the process. Remember, we talked about that in previous episodes about, when are they going to get a match in? Well, they didn't get a home match in until October. And, so that's why. And even with that, think about it. They've been in almost every match. The USF match, they had a lead. They coughed up late. SMU, who, by the way, is ranked 10th or 12th, depending on which soccer poll you check. They only lost to them 2-1. So the team has been clicking. The Connecticut match you mentioned, I've seen Connecticut in person. You realize Connecticut had not given up a goal in conference up until that match. UCF is the first team to score on UConn all in the conference.
And they ripped 3 on them too.
They did, and they've been explosive. And this is a big match against Temple. UCF has to get a result this Saturday. If UCF loses, they're eliminated from the conference tournament possibilities. If they get a win or a draw, they're still in the mix. And that's important because Temple, remember, they finished next weekend hosting USF. USF is hosting SMU this weekend. So this is a very big weekend here. If UCF can beat Temple, you mentioned it, they're at Cincinnati, the worst team in the league. They control their fate to make the conference tournament, which would be significant. And based on the way they're playing, that's a team they feel confident they can win the conference tournament if they can get in there. Now, Temple is a team that's playing as good as anybody right now in the league as well. They've won 6 of their last 7, 3 in a row. It is a program, and I don't know if people realize this. Temple obviously is known for their basketball. Temple right now is currently 8-6-1. They're 2 wins shy, all right? They're 2 wins shy of winning 10 games in a season, 10 matches. That would be the 5th time in 6 seasons they would have accomplished that. So this team knows how to win. And Temple and UCF, since they've played in the conference, since they joined the conference in 2013, okay, every match except one, they've played 4 times as conference games. Every match except for one in 2015 has gone to overtime or double overtime. They had a draw in 2013, 2-2. They had a draw in 2014, 1-1. UCF won last year, in 2015. I'm sorry, they won in 2015, 3-1. Last year's match, Temple won it at home, 1-0 in the 94th minute. So these teams play close matches. They're both playing at a very high level. Temple's got a couple of dynamic offensive players that are very young. They might have the rookie of the year in the league, and Alan Camacho Soto that UCF's going to have to deal with to go along with Tebow Candia, who's the sophomore. This is a big match, and it should be an exciting match based on this matchup with everything on the line. Because you're right, if Temple wins, they basically lock up a spot in the conference tournament. If Temple loses, now Temple needs some help. So this is a huge ramification match, which I'm excited about, Jeff. I'll be completely honest with you. I've known about that I was going to call this match for a while. And when the schedule first came out, and you mentioned when UCF was struggling, I'm like, this will be an interesting one to sell. But the way both teams are playing, Jeff, I mean, this is as exciting of a match. And it's hopefully, I know a lot of the alumni weekend for men's soccer, a lot of their alumni players are going to be in attendance for that, from what I've been told. So hopefully they get a good turnout. It's a 2:00 kick. It's 3 hours before the football game. Doesn't hurt. The match will be over no later than 4:30. So you got plenty of time to go to soccer match and go to football because this team's deserved it. And I'm excited about the future of this program. Granted, they lose some seniors. This is their senior day, which I can't believe I'm saying senior day already, by the way. Where did time fly?
We need to have them work on that schedule and make soccer a year-round sport in the NCAA.
You know, it's funny. You're not the first to have brought that up. That is something that some people have brought up at the heels of the United States men's team failing to qualify for the World Cup. Some people think that in particular in the men's college soccer, some think they would be better off if they were a 2-semester sport, that would help their game.
The coaches have both said that. I know. I know. Okay. Yeah. I remember Brian Cunningham told us that last year. And Coach Calabrese actually mentioned that as well. It's something that that coaches in general seem to be, completely on board with on the men's side. I haven't talked to anybody on the women's side about it, but the season just is too short. And considering that they're starting it basically in early August at this point, the American, you have three schools that don't sponsor men's soccer, so the season's a little bit shorter, but still, I think that it would benefit the game tremendously. Of course, we can go on and on about Team USA, and everyone has a laundry list of things that Team USA needs to do in order to figure itself out on the heels of not making the World Cup, which is just unbelievable in my mind. But as far as this game's concerned, though, I think it comes down to what sort of players are you actually developing, and Coach Calabrese, I think, has actually figured that out quite well here. And the guy who I'm going to be looking at, I know we've talked a lot this year about Matthias Puzzolo and how great of a goal scorer he's been for UCF, and he leads the team in goals and all that. But this guy, Cal Jennings, has really stepped up of late. He had 2 goals in that Stetson match that really, plus an assist, by the way. He's a sophomore, one of these young guys, a sophomore from Roswell, Georgia. And then he had 2 goals in the UConn match and helped UCF over the top in that one. Scored another one against FIU. He's scored at least 1 goal in 4 of the last 5 matches, and he has been a dynamic. We were looking for that second guy to take the scoring load off of Matthias Puzzolo, and I think we found it in Cal Jennings.
They have, and they've clicked, and they're playing their best soccer. They're peaking at the right time. You just hope that they have 2 more wins in them, because I think if they can sneak into that conference tournament, that's going to be a wide open conference tournament. They've already proven that. They've beaten UConn. Some say they had USF on the ropes in Tampa.
They did,
and then SMU, they gave them all they could handle. So they're playing very well, and I think moving forward. And I know you got a chance to talk to him before the season. I think if you're UCF men's soccer, I think you feel good about Scott Calabrese already turning this team around this year, being in the mix. And if it wasn't for some, a couple of breaks here, whether it be with the scheduling, with the weather, or a couple of holds here, they could be talking about making the NCAA right now as an at large. As it is, they're peaking right now. It should be a good one. The UCF and Temple, though, that's going to be a heck of a match. And based on history, since they've joined the conference, could be one that needs more than 90 minutes to be decided.
And that, once again, is Saturday at 2 p.m., October 28th, 4 hours before the start of the UCF Austin Peay football game. So you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the team to come on out on Senior Day and check this team out, because, like you said, Elo, this is a critical match that you will be broadcasting on the American Digital Network. And like we said, I mean, this is going to be. This is a critical time for UCF men's soccer. I'm saying it outright. They don't. You don't want to tie this match. You want to come out and you want to win it.
You're right. You're right. You want to win it.
Don't leave it in the hands of others.
Correct, because if the UCF gets a draw, they're still not out of it. But in that scenario, they would need to win against Cincinnati, and then probably need Temple. They would need some help to lose to USF, or they would need USF to lose to SMU this weekend and then lose to Temple, and that way UCF could get in that way. Those are the scenarios for them to get in if they get a draw. A win, then they control it. If they beat Temple, all they got to do is beat Cincinnati, and they're in. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if they lose, it's done. It's over. Yeah. So it's a lot of drama there, and looking forward to calling it with Matt Stubbington, who has covered the men's conference tournament over the last couple of years for the American Digital Network, also does women's soccer at Florida. has worked with my friend Adam Schick, so I'm excited to be working with Matt and hopefully get a good broadcast and provide an exciting match.
Good. Should be a good show, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in for that one, or logging on, as it were, to check that one out. All right, let's hop over to volleyball real quick. Weekend for UCF on the road. They get a split on that Houston-Tulane trip. So Friday, October the 20th, they go out to Houston. They lose in 4. But then, coming back, they stop in New Orleans, hit up Tulane, and they win that match, which was televised on the American Digital Network. I watched a little bit of it, 3-1. So UCF volleyball right now, to take a look at you in the standings, is Wichita State right now is undefeated. Wow, I mean, have they been something in this league? UCF's in a 3-way tie right now for 6th at 4-6. Right now at 11-11 overall. Now, one of the things that Coach Dagenet mentioned in the post game, and I was watching it as he was talking with the folks from the American Digital Network, is there were a lot of teams that racked up home wins early to sort of take that early lead in the race. Coming around that quarter-mile pole, to use a horse racing term. But now we're coming down a 3/4-mile pole, and some of those matches have to come back, and we're going to start seeing that this weekend. So, for example, UCF's playing Wichita State on Friday night, 7 p.m. It's Volleybowl 10. 7 o'clock first serve for UCF and Wichita State, and we talked about how good Wichita State is. 10-0 overall, 10-0 in the league, 18-3 overall, and boy, are they off to just off to a flying start, as we expected they would be in the American. And they've really raised I think nationally they've raised the profile of the league significantly. Coming on over, because right now they're 18th in the volleyball RPI, in the AVCA coaches poll. Pulling that up right now. Wichita is
they're 21st.
21st. That's right. So
yeah.
So here's a story for UCF. And if you want to start getting hot down the stretch, now's the time to do it. Because you have, like we said, Wichita State. Then you got Memphis. Memphis this year is not very good. They're 1-9 in the conference, 8-14 overall. You should be able to take that match on Sunday. But if you can if you can upset Wichita State in front of a big crowd, there should be a big crowd for this match, and then you come back and get Memphis before you go on the road back in East Carolina, Cincinnati. Remember, everybody goes home and home in volleyball. So as you head down the stretch, first of all, if you can prove to yourself that you can beat Wichita State, then you can beat anybody. And second of all, if you're, once you've done that, pretty much every match the rest of the way is winnable. The standings are really going to get mixed up as we head down the stretch here. I think this is the biggest match of the year for UCF volleyball. What say you?
Well, it is. I mean, first of all, I was trying to help me out here, because you've been going to matches now for all those 10 years more consistently than I have. The last team that played at the venue ranked, like Wichita State, what was the last team? Was it Stanford? I know I was there for Stanford years ago. I think it was his first year, second year.
Might have been Stanford. I don't recall us bringing
the other ones. Yeah,
Florida State. I know Florida State might have been ranked
last year.
Were they ranked? I may have to. I'll have to go back. I'm not 100% sure on that, but
you can look into that. But that's the
I know
big
Stanford
thing.
was when we played them, and that was 10 years ago.
Remember, that was the first volleyball. I was there. So I don't know if Florida State was. Point is, this is a big match from that standpoint. I think this is I don't know if it's, it's a huge opportunity. And I almost think if from an at-large standpoint, this is your opportunity to get that at-large win. If you could beat Wichita State, there's a trump card that you've got, and then you can go on a run and make a big push. And then maybe by the committee say, look, we beat Wichita State. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, look at us, type of deal. So I agree.
Took care of business the rest of the way, yeah.
Exactly. So you're right. That's the opportunity that you have. My concern is if they don't beat Wichita State, and even if they finish strong, I don't know if they'll have enough quality wins to get into the field. That's why I think this is a big opportunity here to try to you hope it's a big crowd. Now, you mentioned the big crowd. I normally would agree with you, except here's a uniqueness here. And I'm wondering, about this because I'm going to try and hit up both. You got women's soccer and volleyball at the same time. They don't usually. It doesn't happen often. It happens maybe a couple times a year. And honestly, most of the time that it does happen, it might happen on a Sunday.
Right.
Because women's soccer and conference play plays Thursday nights for the most part, except this particular weekend. Both matches are at 7. Now, in the spring, baseball and softball conflict a lot, but they change the times. Like softball, for example, in conference play plays Fridays at 5 o'clock or 5:30, depending on. Men's baseball is at 6:30. Saturday, it's at 2 o'clock for softball usually. Baseball used to be at 4. Last year, it was at 6:30. The only time they really go head-to-head is Sunday when they're both at noon usually, or 11 a.m. and 12, depending on flights. Both here in the fall, you got volleyball and soccer, 2 big matches. I think maybe the biggest night in fall that can remember in a while, but they're both at 7. How much would that affect the fan bases? Because there's people like me, for example, that would normally hit up both of those matches, but they're both at the same time. You can't. Now I have the luxury, having credential, that I can go back and forth if I want, which I intend on doing, but not everybody has that luxury. I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution to this. I don't know if like starting one match at 6:30 and the other one at 7:30 would help. Is there a remedy you think they could do here? Because I think there will be people that would have gone to the volleyball match that are going to be at the soccer match because of what's at stake there.
I think it's hard.
Completely different crowds, or do you think they're different fan bases?
The non-student fan bases obviously are completely different. The question is, how many students are you going to drag over from one to the other? I think you would love to have, obviously, 100% of the students at one or the other. It really does stink because they should be able to stagger this. I wish they had been able to, say, move the soccer to about 5 o'clock because it's going to be a nice day out. If you move the soccer to 5, that game will be over in time for the volleyball match at 7. And you can get fired up. You can celebrate the regular season title, assuming UCF gets there, for women's soccer. Then, hey, we got one more. Let's hop over to volleyball and get loud for that, right? So I wish they were able to do that.
Right, vice versa. I mean, it could be vice versa. I don't know. Now,
remember the opponents. If you're ever going to change time, remember the opponents have to agree to that too. And they're not stupid. Okay, USF is not stupid. They know that if they can put a dent in the UCF home crowd, they're going to try to do that.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting because, like I said, I brought up the baseball softball because I know a lot of people that are baseball fans that are softball fans as well. So a lot of people actually, I've seen this doing games at softball. There's fans that'll go to the softball game first and then head over to baseball right after that and catch the baseball game, or they'll leave softball early to go to baseball so they can hit up both. You don't even have that luxury here. Like, let's say they would have start one of them at 6 and the other one at 7. You could probably mess around with that. That's tricky here. Obviously, from my standpoint, I have to calculate it because, for example, like when women's soccer goes to halftime, I'll head over to volleyball, but then there's intermission in volleyball. So it's unfortunate because I think you're right. This is the big – when both schedules came out, I mean, obviously North Carolina was the one that everybody circled in soccer, but USF's always a big match, last game, and now when you consider the fact that the conference championship's on the line. And then for volleyball, Jeff, when the schedule came out, this was the one that everybody circled. And it's usually they draw big crowds. So – I don't know. I'm fascinated on both sides. I feel like both teams have their loyal fan base, right? So it's not like I don't think either side will lose a huge percentage of the fans, but they do lose maybe the casual fan that maybe gets divided is kind of how my gut tells me. Do you agree with that? That maybe I think both, like volleyball has their diehard fans. They're going to go to volleyball no matter what. Soccer is going to have their diehard fans. They're going to go to soccer. There's percentages of those people that are not interested in the other sport. But I think the casual fan that's interested in, hey, I might go check this out, that could be a bit of a conflict. I'm going to guess they'll go to women's soccer because of what's at stake, and that might hurt. Volleyball might lose out on the casual fan that they normally would get for a volleyball 10 with a team like Wichita State that's ranked in the top 25 coming in.
Yeah, for your Olympic sports, USF is going to be a bigger draw than even a ranked conference opponent that's not USF. it seems unfortunate, considering that
right.
UCF volleyball really could use a rowdy atmosphere in there to play against Wichita State. But when you see UCF and USF, people are going to gravitate towards that. So I think you're right. It is going to sap away some of the casual observers. But my big question is, how many of them are there, and how many of the students are there that you're going to miss out?
Right,
because they're the ones who are going to provide the atmosphere at both places.
Well, and the funny thing is, I think I read where both volleyball and soccer, they're both giving out free T-shirts to the students. So that
double
usually
dip if you haven't done laundry in a while.
And you know what? I guarantee you, there's going to be some students that are going to do that. They're going to try and double dip, try to get 2 shirts out of it. I guarantee you that's going to happen. I don't know if they can pull it off or not, but that's going to be interesting. And what's unfortunate is there was no really flexibility in the scheduling. Because, in the past, I know that women's soccer at times has played conference games on a Saturday, but you can't do that when you have a conference game on Sunday. And obviously, you wouldn't even be able to, and then women's soccer, they can't play Saturday because men's soccer has a game on Saturday. And for whatever reason, this time around, they decided that this women's soccer match was scheduled on Friday instead of Thursday. So it's unfortunate from that standpoint, because I think it's a huge night. And hopefully it's one of those things kind of like the Magic in Orlando City when they go head-to-head and they're both at home, that maybe – and I've seen that. I always wondered about that. And it turns out both teams draw their own fans and they're both fine. Maybe it's one of those things when I walked to both on Friday night that, you know what, both sides got their turnout and everybody's happy. Yeah.
Well, I wish that they could have, pulled that sort of that doubleheader. So,
but I would like to see that. Right, I would like to see that. I wish there could be a way where all the parties involved, and I'm talking facilities and people, maybe kind of work this, make it work where they could kind of differentiate. And by the way, just a look ahead. If you go back a couple of weeks from now, this Friday, which is, I believe it's November 10th, if my math is correct, is that Friday. That's the night that men's basketball and women's basketball season openers. It's the same night volleyball has a home match. So you got another conflict there where women's basketball is I believe it's at 5:30, men's basketball follows at 8, and then women's volleyball is sandwiched in there at 7. So it's kind of a tough break for volleyball here for them, where they're going to have a couple of tough conflicts that weekend. Plus, that is also the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. UCF will host a first-round match. I don't know when. It could be that Friday night as well. If not Saturday. Remember, that Saturday of that weekend, UCF's hosting Connecticut in football. So it's a log jam that's coming up, buddy. It's coming.
Quite the problem to have.
Yeah.
Way too much great sports on campus, right? So, but
that's right.
It is a critical. I can't emphasize enough that it is a critical weekend for UCF volleyball to try and get Wichita State and try and ignite a little run, because I do think that at their best this team is as good as anybody in the conference. It's just been they've again, the schedule's been very difficult to them, and but now's the time, right? So Volleyball 10 Friday, October 27th at 7 p.m. against Wichita State, number 18 Wichita State, followed by Volloween Sunday, October 29th at noon. Against Memphis. Both of those matches will be on UCFnights.tv, but head on down there. And also don't forget women's soccer as well. All right, Elo, let's take a quick timeout. And coming up next, speaking of successful sports on campus, football. Lots to talk about with that because they got a game coming up this weekend. If you have an old schedule magnet, you're going to have to get the Sharpie out to fill this one in. All right, stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret podcast is back after this.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret podcast.
And welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. Follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter. Also hit us up on Facebook and subscribe to us on Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and tune in. All right, Elo, let's check in on football, shall we? I know, right? It's they're only the what is it now? The number 18 ranked team in the Associated Press Top 25, 17th in the coaches poll. The Knights are 6-0, coming off of their 31-21, relatively speaking, nail biter in Annapolis at Navy. I had said, and Brian Murphy echoed this, that this would. I'd been saying all throughout the season that this was going to be the toughest test. This road game against Navy, and it was pretty tight there for a considerable amount of time. The Knights had some opportunities. Couldn't really, stick it to Navy early on, and then Navy does Navy things, right? I mean, they just frustrate you and take advantage of their opportunities so well. They're such an opportunistic team. This game was 14-14 at one point in the third quarter after a 75-yard touchdown pass from Zach Abey to Malcolm Perry for Navy, but things changed in the third. 15 seconds after that, Adrian Killens had his 79-yard touchdown run that, obviously piqued the interest once again of TJ LSU Dad on Twitter. And then AB got hurt. And you're talking about one of the leading rushers in the country, by the way, in Zach Abey of Navy. So, and then Matt Wright kicked a field goal with 2:41 to go in the third. The Knights had a 10-point lead, but it wasn't done in the fourth. This is a Navy team that got within 3 with 12:50 to go, and was right there until UCF put together a nice little drive in the fourth quarter. Navy turned the ball over on a huge hit by Brandon Moore, who I think he got completely toasted on that 75-yard touchdown pass. But he came back, redeemed himself, forced a fumble, recovered it, kind of pulled a Jadeveon Clowney, if you will, a baby Jadeveon. And 7 plays later, Otis Anderson capped it off with a 10-yard touchdown run with 3:30 to go, and that was pretty much it. UCF was up by 10 on Navy at that point. It's so hard for Navy to come back to run a 2-minute offense, when they're running the triple option like they do. So this was, I thought, there were a couple of big wins this year, no question about it. The Maryland game comes to mind, but to me, this was the biggest win for UCF football so far this year, to go 6-0 for the first time in school history. Previous record was 5-0 in '88. That team finished 6-5, but 6-0 for the first time is UCF football, and in the top 20 in both polls. So, I don't know. What did you think was the key at coming out of this Navy game for UCF?
Probably glad that Navy was banged up. I think if Navy wasn't a broken football team, we would really because you mentioned Zach Abey going down. Obviously that affected him in the second half. They were also,
he was a real problem. He was a legit problem in that game.
And, they were down their third string running backs and fullbacks. They're a banged up football team. Look, it's a style game. Me and Murph talked about it last week. We thought this was going to be a close game. We thought and I was curious to see how UCF would respond, how they get hit in the mouth. And they got hit in the mouth in this game. I said, you're not going to blow everybody out I don't care who you are. And Navy's a tough place. Style with that scheme, with that offense, as you see, it gives you problems. And I gave the defense some problems. And but they made plays when they had to. It was a good gut check win. And I think that's what you take out of it. That I think you learn a lot about the team. They win. The good news is it's a physical game, but now you play Austin Peay, which was originally their bye week. Austin Peay is one FCS school. So at least you don't have to worry about playing. I think they'll have a good time recovering physically, because I think they'll be able to play a lot of guys in this game and be fresh for SMU on the 4th. I would have been more worried if you're playing Navy and then you're playing like SMU right away. They're like, oh, that's – because a lot of teams, and people don't understand this, when you play the triple option, it's not necessarily the problem in that game in itself, but it's also the problem after the game, because a lot of times your linemen are beat up from dealing with those offensive linemen, and it takes its toll the following. A lot of teams that play Georgia Tech and Navy don't play well the following weekend.
Yeah, they get beat up.
Right. So I don't think it was an accident UCF had a bye week originally scheduled after the Navy game, and it turns out they had to reschedule stuff, and they got Austin Peay, which they should be able to handle. So, look, it's a good win for them. They're ranked 18th, and I think obviously to me, as you look at the schedule here down the stretch, I think there's two games that could ruin a UCF-USF potential undefeated showdown on Black Friday. One of them is this weekend. USF will host Houston. I think that's USF's biggest threat. Mm-hmm. I think Houston will give problems. And I think from
Houston's coming into that game pretty ticked about how they lost to Memphis too.
Exactly. They blew a lead there. I think they have the best player in the conference in Ed Oliver, the defensive lineman who's going to be a future first-round NFL pick probably a year from now. And after the 2018 season, he's only a sophomore, believe it or not, true sophomore.
Oh, really?
And for UCF, he's back, baby. And I think for UCF, I think the tricky game is going to be is SMU when they go up to Dallas in a couple of weeks, which we'll get into more down the road. But that's it. I think that's what could affect it. I don't, the Navy game is good. I will caution people. The thing that worries me is I think this is a Navy team that's going to lose a couple more times before the year. And so I don't think this one will look as good a month from now that it does right now. I'm not a big proponent of that. I don't really care about those things. I'm just telling you, be prepared for critics outside to point that out a month from now, because I think Navy's going to lose a couple of more times. But UCF doesn't care about it. Who cares? UCF got the win on that, and big step on the road. And I was happy that they were challenged, because I did feel like they needed to be challenged before they play USF. I didn't want them to go to the USF game not being challenged, because as much as grief as USF gets for their schedule this year, and rightfully so, the one thing I will say is they have faced adversity. They faced adversity the opener against San Jose State when they were down 17-0 early. They faced adversity struggling against Stony Brook. They even faced adversity last weekend as Tulane made a late run at them in the fourth quarter. And I do think that helps a football team as you move on. And I think that was good that UCF faced some adversity, that they had to answer a Navy score with a score in the second half, that when Mackenzie Milton threw a pick and Navy's driving in the fourth quarter, that UCF's defense stepped up with Brandon Moore, as you mentioned, with that big play to turn the ball over. I think that's all positives for this team moving forward.
I want to give some credit where credit is due to the UCF defense here, because this is a Navy team that came in averaging almost 400 yards per game on the ground. But UCF's defense held them to 248. Now, I know 248 is still a lot, but you're talking about a team that's averaging 400 a game. That's a pretty good job of bend but don't break, and I think that's what they had to do in that game, and it certainly did. It certainly, I mean, 4.2 yards per rush for Navy, but if you can, sometimes you can hold them under 5. And you force them into third downs.
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's where Navy got vulnerable, and I think that's where the defense really stepped up during the game.
And now let me say this, because I know some people were concerned because the secondary gave up some big plays passing. I'm going to give the secondary a pass on that. When you're playing a triple option like that, it's tough from a passing standpoint because they run
9 men in the box all the time.
It's a completely different mindset than it is when you're playing a different, spread offense, because your mindset is like they're going to run the ball, they're running the ball, they're running the ball, they're running the ball, they're running the ball, and then wow, they're throwing the ball, and you blink, and then they throw the ball. That's why Navy is that tough to play. So I know some people are concerned about that. I don't really take too much away from that kind of stuff, because again, this is a team that's it's just completely opposite of what you play all year long. So
yeah, I've been saying all along that it's like you're playing football all season, and then all of a sudden one week you have to play rugby.
So yeah, it was just weird, and so they got out of it with a win. That's what matters. And now they get healthy. And I think for Austin Peay, the thing I'll say about that game is this is an opportunity to get a lot of guys to play. A lot of guys.
And to get guys rested, too. I think that's the other thing.
Absolutely. So I expect to see a lot of that on Saturday night. I will mention congrats to Nightline. They finally got a win. I mean, granted, they took advantage of a situation of you. You literally slept for like 5 minutes last week, and they just went ahead and asked you for your opinion and took advantage of that. I had some family matters, so they just took advantage of our weak spots. Okay, congrats, guys.
That's we were playing hurt. We were playing hurt, and but you know what? Right. No excuses. No excuses out here. We don't make excuses at the Black and Gold Banneret. So, let's tip our caps. And we'll come back and we'll coach them up and we'll get things going again next week.
I think this weekend should be the most fun matchup because I feel like so far what we've done here, we've basically the same guys have been picked for the most part, right? Like, I mean, Traquan Smith has been picked a lot. Adrian Killings has been picked a lot. Even defensive players have been. The thing that's about this game is because so many players, I believe, will play, that really, I think it opens the talent pool as far as who could possibly be picked, because certain guys that you would normally pick that are starting may not play a lot.
Yeah.
So you got to consider that. So I think this will be a fascinating one that will obviously update the audience on social media with the picks and all that. But the good news this week, boys. Jeffrey's got a few hours of sleep this time around. He's all right, not going to take advantage like we did last week, where you snuck him in there. He was literally walking, sleeping as he made his picks. All right, so hope you're.
For a second there, I thought we were playing pro pick'em, but anyway. One little note on Austin Peay before we go. This is a team that lost their first two games. After on the road at Cincinnati and at Miami of Ohio. At that point, they had lost a Division I high 29 games in a row. Since then, they've won 5 out of 6. Their only loss was to Jacksonville State. They're coming off a win against Southeast Missouri. They are in second place in the Ohio Valley Conference standings behind Jack State, which is that one team that they lost to. So might be easy to sleep on Austin Peay. I don't think it's going to be, because they are playing this game like it's their bowl game. Did you see on Twitter their whole thing is like, we're going to Disney World, this week. They're planning on hitting the theme parks and maybe hitting the beach or something. They're actually treating this like it's a bowl game. And
why not? It's Orlando.
I know.
Why not?
And I would be, well, of course, if I'm Scott Frost, I'm like, okay, you want to treat it like a bowl game? No problem. Go ahead and hit the beach, boys. Have some fun. And be here by kickoff on Saturday. We'll show you what fun looks like. Right. And so, I don't want anybody to sleep on them too much. I don't think we're going to be sleeping on them too much. I think the goal is put them down early, put them to bed early, and get some guys rested up, because that home stretch, like you said, coming down the pike, these last 4 games at SMU, home for UConn, at Temple, home for USF, 4 consecutive weeks to finish out is going to be a tough stretch. It's going to be huge for UCF. So make sure you take it. By the way, television for this game is going to be on ESPN3. It is televised. It will be streamed on ESPN3. So credit to them for actually pulling that off. I'm actually pulling up the broadcast, because it's going to be Sean Kenny and Forrest Connolly doing the game for ESPN3. So bear that in mind. By the way, UCF, one of 8 remaining undefeated teams in FBS. They're the only team that has won each of their games by double digits. So thanks to Andy Seeley and Dan Forcella for that little nugget. Last time these two teams played, by the way, Eric Lopez, was in 1984. So there is a history. This was homecoming for UCF back in the day. 1984, Austin Peay actually won in the Citrus Bowl. This was the year after UCF actually upset Austin Peay in October of 1983. So quick little trivia bit for you here, Lopez. Who was UCF's quarterback in 1984 when they lost to Austin Peay? I can tell you right now, you're not going to get this.
Well, then I'm not going to get it. Who is it?
Dana Theisen.
Yeah, would not have gotten it. No.
Dana Theisen.
Definitely would not have gotten it.
Dana, if you're out there, give us a shout. Because we wanted to give you a shout. So, we're open to redeem that game for you from back in 1984. So,
correct.
So, yeah.
By the way, real quick,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if we'll be on by the time this comes out. Maybe we will. Halloween is when the first committee rankings will come out. By the way, officially,
that should be
which is significant. That's the one that decides if you're an group of if you're a team that's not in the quote unquote Power Five, the highest ranked team champion from the group of the other group conferences. If you're ranked the highest in that deal, you will be the team that goes to the at-large bowl, to the All-Access Bowl. Let's do a quick predict. I will predict for Halloween. I'm assuming UCF wins. Let's just assume USF beats Houston. Let's just go with that assumption. I will predict that UCF will be ahead of USF according to the committee, and I predict it will be by a wide margin. I think UCF will be ahead of USF by at least 5 spots. That's my bold prediction. And I'll say UCF's like in the 15 range, 15, 16.
I'm going to put UCF around 19, ahead of USF, but a little further down. I just don't think that the committee is going to respect us enough.
So how low do you have them then?
I would say 19.
So you'll say so you've got UCF 18, USF where?
Or I'm going to have UCF 19, and I'm going to put USF at like 23.
Okay. I go UCF 15. I will say USF's 22. Okay. I'll go 15, 22. I think the committee will punish USF for their lack of schedule. I'll be laughing. I don't think they'll do it. I do wonder if they'll even rank USF in the top 25. They probably will because if they beat Houston, they'll give them credit for that. But I think UCF will have a wide margin on USF, which shouldn't be a surprise, but that might catch some people that normally follow the regular polls. That might surprise some people there. And that's assuming, again, we're assuming that UCF and USF win this weekend. And I think something to look for is, will Memphis be a top 25 team by the committee? And that's important because that's UCF's best win, really, if you go based on that, because Memphis beat Navy. So I actually say that Memphis is their best win based on, if you look on paper. So that's a couple things to look for. But those are things we're going to start following now, because not that it matters, because at the end of the day, you've got to win your division. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. But it is kind of interesting to see how the committee perceives UCF and USF and even Memphis, for that matter, and anybody else, Mountain West or whoever, in the mix there in the rankings, and who UCF's ahead of and who are they behind of. It'll be fun to see.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll have my DVR set for that.
It'll be a trick or it'll be a treat. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
We'll see if it's a trick or a treat.
Nice.
No.
All right, so that's Saturday, October 28th, UCF football against Austin Peay. 5 o'clock kick for that game on ESPN3 if you're not going to Spectrum Stadium. All right, Elo, let's wrap this thing up. I know you got you're doing the soccer game on Saturday for the American Digital Network. What else do you have on tap?
All right, so here's what I'm going to try to do for Black and Gold Banner. I've done a little bit of this at the football games in the recent weeks with pregame.
And it's been awesome,
video,
by the way.
Either Facebook Live or Periscope on Twitter, depending on the mood. I'm going to try and do this all weekend, in particular on Friday. Friday, I plan on going, first of all, to fall ball. Softball has got a fall ball game. They play Seminole State at 5 o'clock. I want to check out some of the new players there. So I will actually do a Facebook Live or a Periscope. And usually what I'll do is I'll do a minute or 2 minutes, kind of take the eye. So I'll be there for a little while. And then I'm going to be at the women's soccer match, UCF-USF, for all the title. We'll have video of there. And I'm going to try and sneak into volleyball as well on that Friday night and shoot video from all 3 sites a little bit to kind of get the environment, get the kind of the look at how things are looking, pregame, maybe postgame stuff. And then, as you mentioned, on Saturday, I'll be calling the UCF Temple men's soccer match on the American Digital Network with Matthew Stubbington, 2 o'clock Eastern on the American Digital Network. A lot on the line in that match. I'll shoot maybe some video there before as well, and then maybe do a video for before the football game starts. Maybe look at the how people, maybe at tailgating, maybe how it looks outside the stadium, maybe go in the stadium. I haven't decided yet. But I'll basically give you an idea how things are going on campus, because it's going to be a busy weekend.
It is indeed. Don't forget, we have women's soccer and volleyball on Friday, like you said. And then Saturday, of course, the men's soccer game against Temple and the football game against Austin Peay. Somewhere in between all that, I'm going to try and get some sleep, but with the baby here, because she's a week old. But and by the way, Coach Frost, if you're listening, sleep now, please. Don't this. If there's one week when you don't really have to look at the extra game film, it's this one. All right. Leave it to Troy Walters. He's got everything figured out. Get whatever sleep you can now, because, boy, life comes at you fast that first week or two. So, and I wanted to, by the way, as we wrap up, I did want to personally thank all the folks at Winnie Palmer Hospital. They are the best in the business at just taking care of you when you welcome a new child into the world. So. And they have been, they were fantastic to us. We had our son Connor was born there, and so thanks to them for that. And our little baby girl Eliza, 6 pounds 4 ounces. She loves to sleep and eat, which are two things that I enjoy doing as well. So like we said, welcome to the Knight family, baby Eliza, and so. Like I said, hopefully she'll give us a little bit more sleep, because I know her mom could probably use some a little bit more as well. So that'll do it for us, Eric Lopez. Thanks again. Appreciate you, man. I'll be seeing you on Periscope Live and Facebook.
Enjoy it, Jeffrey. Get some rest, and I'll talk to you this weekend.
All right, bud. And thank you for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't forget to hit us up on Twitter at UCF_Banneret, as well as myself at Jeff_Sharon, and Eric at Eric Lopez Elo, and also our bud Brian Murphy at Spokes_Murphy. Hit us up on Facebook at Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and subscribe to this podcast. And leave us a rating on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn. For Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the weekend. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.